Hi everyone, welcome back to the Upper Room. We're on week 2 of our month's theme of Fishing 101. The goal for this month in the Upper Room is to equip you and to challenge you to be ready to take an evangelistic step of faith by the end of the month. The key verses for this month are found in Matthew 9:36 through 38. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." You are an answer to this prayer. Being a part of the Upper Room means you're willing to help with the harvest. Let me ask, how did you do on your homework last week? Did you remember to pray? Did you sit still and ask God to show you someone to pursue with the goal of sharing the gospel? You know, apart from Jesus, we can do nothing. That's why prayer is absolutely critical. Please join me in being diligent in prayer this week. Today we're going to get a little philosophical, but I don't want you to be afraid. This shouldn't be boring. If we're going to fish for people like Jesus has called us to do, then we need to decide how we're going to approach this assignment. There's 2 main options to consider, and I think at different times we should utilize both. But there is one of the 2 options that I believe should be our bread and butter. There is the random option, and then we have the relational option. If you know our church at all, you can probably already tell which one of the options I think is the best. Anytime we use the word relational, that should be a dead giveaway. But let's start with random. I make a point to put random in quotes because these fishing experiences may feel random, but I don't think that they're random to God. Random evangelism includes holy moments where you're walking along, minding your own business, and then wham! God puts a person in your life, and you realize by the way the conversation's going that this might be of God. Maybe a person's going through a hard time and you offer to pray. Maybe you're sitting next to them in a waiting area and a conversation begins. Random evangelistic moments often just happen. Again, with quotes, they just happen. Being good at evangelism sometimes is just having the awareness and the courage to bring God into the conversation. Or it can be as simple if someone brings God up to you and you're careful to not put your light under a bushel basket. Paul tells Timothy in 2 Timothy 4 to be ready in season or out of season. Good old Peter says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. Today's challenge is to be ready. The last 2 weeks of this month, we're going to give you tools to get started, and we're going to give you things to do. We're going to give you things to avoid. Being gentle and respectful are included in those conversations. Another form of random evangelism is when some Christians gather and they pray and they ask God to guide them, and then they actually go out looking for people to do evangelism with. They're asking the Holy Spirit to lead them into conversations with strangers. We do this when we're in Mexico. We do park ministry. And if people are engaging with what we're doing or they're showing some curiosity, we try to engage them in conversation. We do this when we are down there and we do street ministry. We show up, we've got bread, we've got drinks, we give a gospel presentation, and then we ask to pray for people as we deliver the food or items that we've brought to care for them. Pastor Kyle, I remember him telling me he was in high school and their youth group did this in inner city Philadelphia, and they started out very scared and intimidated, and they prayed like crazy, and then they walked the streets and they shared the gospel, and it actually was an incredible experience for him, a life-changing, formative experience for him. We've got to be ready. God's timing isn't always our timing, so we need to be on our toes. Relational evangelism is what I want to talk about next, and it's my favorite. For one, walking up to a stranger at the bus stop or at the grocery store and starting a Jesus conversation isn't easy. And those aren't always times where people are open to having a serious conversation with a stranger. When people think about sharing their faith, I think they imagine this kind of encounter. What I want us to start taking stock of is our oikos. Oikos is a Greek word. It's also a brand of Greek yogurt. That'll help you remember it. Oikos means household. More specifically, it means the 9 to 15 human beings that you encounter on a regular basis. If you remember at the very beginning of the upper room, we encourage you to write down your oikos in your journals. This month, it's really important that we dust off this concept. I believe that God has each of us strategically placed throughout Kingman. I think we've got Kingman surrounded. We might not realize it, but we do. Your mission field should start with your oikos, the 9 to 15 people who you see the most and who you have relationship with. Here's your homework, and if you've already done this, then just revisit what you've already done. Write out the 9 to 15 people you see the most. If many of them are Christians, then your job with your oikos is to just encourage, pray for, and help disciple them. But any on your list who don't know Jesus, those are the ones you need to start praying for with intentionality. Now here's the thing. If you don't have any non-Christians in your life, then you need to pray about a place to get some exposure. I love coaching different sports in the schools for about 100 different reasons. But one of the biggies is because it gets me outside the walls of the church with all kinds of different Kingmanites. You and I need to take our oikos seriously. The people who come into our lives aren't there on accident. To live next door to us, or to have the office next to us, or to be our walking buddy, or to be in our pickleball league for years, and to never be offered an invitation to at least take a step towards God, that would be failure on our part. We want to see the people in our oikos in heaven, don't we? The reason I like relational evangelism the best is because if God gives you the privilege of leading someone to the Lord, you're already in a relational position to disciple them. Over the last 20, 30 years, when the church has been able to make converts, they've often dropped the ball on helping those converts mature and become disciples who make disciples. And this is why we make sure to do our random evangelism in Mexicality with Pastor Gill and his team. We know that at the end of the week, we're going home. But any fruit that got harvested while we were there, Gil and his team are there to do the next bit of work, which is discipleship. Plus, I think relational discipleship is often more effective. If you're walking boldly up to random people when you're out and about, people might dismiss you instantly because you're a stranger. But it's hard for someone to instantly ignore a neighbor, a coworker, or a friend who's gently and respectfully inviting them to church or to a fun event. If a stranger asks me to do something at their church, I might be very hesitant. What's your church like? What do they believe? But if a friend invites me to something? Okay, upper room, we're gearing up. Keep praying every day. Your homework this week is write out your oikos again and pray for God to help you reach them. If you don't have any non-Christians in your life, pray for God to give you bridges into the community where you could be fruitful for Him. Next week, we're going over some very practical steps to help you do this. And then during the final week, we're going to tell you what to avoid so you don't instantly scare your fish away. We're also going to give you some great options to help you take a baby step of faith or a great big step of faith. Be ready, my friends, in season and out of season. Always be prepared for the random ministry opportunities that may just fall from the sky. I'm praying for all of you. Pray for me too. This gets me excited. This also makes me nervous. Either way, I promise you this. Real Christianity is not boring. Have a great week.